An angry mob believed to be neo-Nazis attacked two young men during a social experiment in Ukraine. Now, the Ukrainian video was produced by Bird in Flight magazine. They were trying to repeat a similar experiment recently carried out in Moscow by an LGBT rights activist group. They were trying to test out the public's reaction to open displays of homosexuality after the U.S. Supreme Court legalized same-sex marriage across the United States in June. Now, that video, the old one, the original one, has been viewed almost 9 million times since June. Margaret, so these two guys decided to do the same thing in Kiev. Now, you might have seen that original video. It was two guys walking through the streets of Moscow holding hands. There was a guy in front of them with a hidden camera pointed towards them, so you saw people saying bad words. You know, one guy purposely bumps into them, another guy breaks them up and starts pushing them a little bit, but things that you would expect from two guys holding hands in Russia. Now, they decided to do the exact same thing in Kiev's capital, and at first it seemed like, you know, things were actually much better. You didn't get as many comments, or at least that's how they edited it. It didn't seem like people really cared. People weren't really staring. They seemed to go practically unnoticed. But then they sat down on a bench. They got a little too close to each other. He sat on his lap. We have a video of exactly what happened. Check it out for yourselves. Here's the video. So there you see people from the magazine, the security, quickly breaking up the fight. But, you know, they clearly made the wrong choice there, but brave of them for sure for doing that nonetheless. And I'm sure they don't regret doing this.
I mean, Nick, there are no such thing as hate crimes against gays in Russia. And for that matter, I would venture to say not Ukraine either, conceivably, because, you know, right now Kiev doesn't really have an authoritarian structure in place. So, I mean, that was pretty brave of them. You know, I've covered several stories of crimes against gays, specifically in Moscow, and nothing ever happens to the perpetrators. And so, I mean, I don't know what they were thinking or what they were wanting to get out of this, other than to shed light on the plight of people who are gay in these areas. But they're lucky that nothing else happened to them. That's
true, and I think these two videos really represent the two countries when it comes to gay rights. I mean, everywhere the guys went in Moscow, people were objecting. They were finding it just outrageous. Meanwhile, here in Ukraine, you know, they're walking around, no one really seems to care, except for this one extreme far-right group, which they went on to say are Nazis. Now, I'm going to paraphrase a quick quote that he said, because it's very long. He basically said, Ukraine has definitely made some progress. The fact that we could walk around and not get shouted at says a lot about Ukraine in itself. But if we want to move closer to Europe, if we want to move on, we have to get rid of groups and people who think like this. And he's talking about the far right. And a lot of the time when we talk about the far right, in Ukraine, neo-Nazism comes up for some reason or another. And there's actually been a lot of proof that the U.S., in funding these troops who are fighting the Russians in Ukraine,
funded the neo-Nazis.
Are neo-Nazis themselves. Yeah. So we're at a time now when, you know, anti-Semitism, racism as well, is on its rise in Europe, and it's very relevant. And I think that this video really shows, while Ukraine is much more progressive when it comes to being liberal and especially gay rights, you still have these extreme groups out there who are willing to mace and beat up two kids for sitting on each other's laps.
I mean, it's disgusting, but that argument that you made about, you know, Ukraine wanting to be more westernized, you know, I've heard Russians actually say, look at what's going to happen to you, you know, as you venture on this path towards westernization and becoming a part of the EU, your society will become corrupted, your morals will be loose, you know, socially liberal aspects like this. And I'm surprised, I would be shocked if they don't use this as a propaganda tool to say, look, this is what could happen to you. I mean, that's sort of a playing on fear in terms of especially Orthodox people in these areas.
I agree. The two guys' names are Zoryan, Kis and Tymur Levchuck. Now, they were questioned about whether they were patriots or not, if they really loved their country. They said, we do. We're a different kind of patriot. We just want to have that thought that everyone can do whatever the hell they want and believe what they want to believe, sit on whoever's lap they want to sit on.
Without being seen as an enemy of the state.
Exactly. So, we want to know what you guys have to say about this viral video. It's already been viewed hundreds of thousands of times since Tuesday. I think it's well on its way to getting more views than the original one in Moscow. But we want to know what you guys have to say about this, how disgusting it is. Maybe you don't think so at all. Let us know in the comments below. And if you haven't already, subscribe to the Lip TV for more.